For if my suffering in jail has contributed toward the liberation of my people, peace on earth, and goodwill to all men, then any sacrifice I've been forced to make has not been in vain. This statement is the parting gift at the conclusion of a letter penned by an unjustly incarcerated black woman held within Cuyahoga County Jail in December of 1962. Liberation, peace, sacrifice. These words were chosen and crafted, written to convey a voice. Each reader receives the message that moves from ink to eyes to understanding. When a piece of writing comes to an end, the message doesn't stop. It becomes an energy which can no longer be created or destroyed, only transferred and transformed. So whose voice are you receiving? This writing is from Mae Mallory, who was a dynamic leader. She started her life as an activist at a young age, advocating for improved school conditions in New York City. Her endeavors, including work with the Black Panther Party and for the Civil Rights Movement, played an integral role in the Black freedom movement. As we know, when the ground shakes and signals a shift toward liberation, oppressive forces stick themselves into the dirt and make strong efforts to hold the world as it is. In 1961, a group of freedom riders, who Mallory was aiding and hosting, were attacked. Black neighborhoods in the area were patrolled. During the unrest, a white couple who drove into their neighborhood were offered refuge and safety within Mallory's home. Upon leaving, they reported to the police that they had been kidnapped. These accusations led to Mallory's incarceration for over a year in jail, a conviction by an all-white jury, and a sentencing of 16 to 20 years in prison. During her imprisonment, Mallory penned the letter, Mae Mallory, an open letter to my friends in America and those in foreign lands. In 1965, she was exonerated. The verdict was overturned because African Americans were excluded from the jury selection. Upon being exonerated, she continued to fight for Black liberation until her passing in 2007, continuing towards reaching peace through her sacrifices. Considering the life of Mae Mallory, I'm reflecting on what it means to inherit a reality where we are constantly facing forces that intend to silence us. Given this collective truth, as Black women, we have to choose what voice we want to share with the world. A world where we are the incarcerated and the shamed, but we are also the poets and the artists. We are the fired, the killed, the assaulted, the ignored, but we are also the healers and the storytellers. Welcome to today's episode of Ology of a Black Woman, my personal study into the intersections of sex and race. Today's foundational idea is granting authority to the voices of Black women. Given this topic that I wanted to explore, I set out with 3 directional questions. Number 1, has my quietness ever been a choice? Number 2, how does it feel to hear the voices of Black women? And number 3, when do I feel voiceless, and how can I avoid these moments going forward? Sister Outsider is a collection of Audre Lorde's works, including speeches, interviews, and essays, which was published in 1984. All Hail the Queen is Queen Latifah's debut studio album, which was released in 1989. Speaking Freely, a weekly public television series developed by Freedom Forum's First Amendment Center, featured bell hooks on an episode, which aired between 2000 and 2004. A Place of Rage is a 1991 documentary by Pratibha Parmar featuring interviews with activists and writers, including June Jordan, Alice Walker, and Angela Davis. The Serviceberry, published in 2024, written by Robin Kimmer, gives an overview of principles of gift economies where goods and services are given freely without explicit agreement for compensation through the lens of a Serviceberry. Each piece of media that I've read, listened to, or watched has informed my understanding of both silence and development of your voice. Silence is often used as a protective mechanism, and in Sister Outsider, I considered how that thought that it's protective often hinders us. In addition, I was led to consider how societal influences have shaped my use of my own voice and how sitting in silence ultimately will do us harm. I also imagined what life could look like once I reach outside the bounds of silence and endure through my fears, through scrutiny, and through hardship. I grew up watching Queen Latifah's work as an actress. So outside of UNITY, I've never really engaged with her music. But listening to this album was fun and refreshing because I got to hear how she was taking authority over, the work that she was putting out and really made it clear exactly who she was and the work that she produced and how you would address her. A Place of Rage is the documentary to watch if you want to hear what it's like for Black women to use their voice and speak out and to inform audiences in creative ways. This interview was my first time hearing Bell Hooks speak. I've only read her works, and it was nice to hear her talk about things like censorship and about what we can do when we're listening to other people and trying to have conversations with one another. And I think her takes will always leave me questioning more and considering what I really believe in. This is the same author who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass, and this book also echoes the same sentiments of connection to the natural world and understanding the connection we can have and the ones that we've been conditioned to have with nature and the world around us and the people around us. I really enjoyed this read because it allowed me to think about my voice in a unique way. I'm going to give you 3 takeaways, 3 translations, and 3 threads that I believe are going to lead me into my next exploration, but also be just, a good conclusion for you all to hear about where my studies have led me. The first takeaway is that your voice is a gift that can travel further than time, place, and intention. I want to say it in a way that reflects on what I read in the Serviceberry because I really like the concept of a gift economy. The principles there that are just pretty much given to the world without expecting something in return, and really letting go of the transactional mindset that we have around, pretty much anything in this world that is built on just capitalistic motives, right? And the reason why this is a major takeaway for me is because I think considering my voice a gift in this context will allow me to explore my voice and explore my self-expression and how I want to present myself authentically in the world without the positive and negative aspects that come from just considering pieces of ourselves as transactional and looking at ourselves as products. So, for example, if I'm going into this with a mindset that is more transactional. Let's say I want to use my voice to stand up for something and I want to see like a change in the world, like a tangible difference in the world. If I don't see that change happen in the way that I am, expecting, or if I don't see the impacts that I've, outlined for myself to have created, that can create a lot of feelings of inadequacy or feeling like, I'm not really doing my work or serving my purpose when I would just want to be fulfilled by putting my voice out there, period, whether or not I'm meeting whatever metrics that I have for myself, right? On the other end of things, there are some negative aspects that come with imagining, using your voice as a transactional thing, because if you use your voice and you're met with retaliation, or if you're met with, misunderstanding or shame or anything like that, it leads to feelings of anxiety and fear the next time you try to use it because you think, I used my voice in a way that was not, I wasn't really reciprocated or valued in the way that I wanted to be. So now there's shame there. And now it's like there's more constraints on how I would go about using it in the future. So that's why I really have this main takeaway of it being a gift. And it also connects back to when I was watching A Place of Rage. I thought it was so interesting how in the beginning, I believe it's Angela Davis who was talking about Fannie Lou Hamer and the efforts that she made during the civil rights movement. And when this documentary came out, it was like the 90s. So she was reflecting on the work that was done in the 60s, I want to say, which is like a 30-year gap. Now here I am in 2026 looking at this documentary, listening to the words of Angela Davis and Alice Walker and June Jordan, which has happened like about 30 years prior to like me wanting to find my voice. I just thought it's so funny how like the voices that they were reflecting on and honoring have trickled down to me, and how their own, output that they did and, this documentary that they put together has also trickled down and affected me. And it just made me realize that, whatever your intentions are with what you're doing, or, whatever environment you're in, whatever time and place that you're in, none of that is really gonna limit how far your voice goes. The choice to use your voice and to empower yourself and give yourself authority is one that you have to make over and over again across your lifetime, because with time there are always going to be influences that attempt to silence you, that attempt to tell you negative things and to really put messages out there for you to internalize. And you have to always be mindful of what you're absorbing and whether or not it is affecting your voice. And that is the second point that I want to share. My last takeaway is learning how to be comfortable with my authentic voice in its full range of expression. So that includes anger and rage, and not shying away from these different types of energies that we may feel based on the experiences that we are having. And, that's something that I really took away from a place of rage, and all hail the queen, honestly. Just really being authentic in my expression, and not shying away from, having these real emotions and things like that. And the other thing I want to say with being comfortable with an authentic voice is not getting mixed up in what is your voice and what is just noise, and what is, someone else using you as a vessel to amplify their message. Constantly consuming someone else's work, whether it's good or bad, that does not mean that's your voice. We can read 100 books, we can read all these essays, watch all these films, but it's still important to, really think about what we're learning and turn that into something for ourselves, and continue producing new work in our own voices. And just really understanding that using someone else's voice isn't going to change your own state of silence. Although it can't empower it, there is a next step of really figuring out who you are and what you want to bring out into the world. And that is something that I am reflecting on for myself. 3 translations that I have from this study are: number 1, allowing my own self-empowerment to be reflected in the way I give authority, recognition, and honor to other voices. So, in the same way that I want to feel empowered in, expressing myself and being authentic, I want to make sure that I'm validating the way other people want to feel when they are also sharing. And that doesn't necessarily mean I have to agree with everything they say. That doesn't necessarily mean I have to, like what every single person is putting out. But I do want to be intentional about attempting to understand and really learn about new stories that I have not heard of, and just really continue listening and just honoring the people that have come before me in these spaces. And then, allowing that to really shape how I build my own confidence. Yes. The second is moving with intention and understanding that sometimes I am planting seeds for the next generation. Other times I'm going to be reaping my own harvest. And other times I'm going to be sharing with others, what I have, gardened. I don't know what the rest of the analogy would be. But basically, this theory, these principles of a gift economy, letting that come into my life, being way more giving and just letting it be that, giving my voice to the world, having these thoughts and sharing them. And then the last thing is, how can I critically think about the things I'm hearing currently, and how will I consider, the voices of the people that I'm hearing from my own generation? I do a lot of study and work looking at people from previous generations, to be so honest. I haven't really gotten into hearing like younger voices yet, aside from discourse that is online. And it honestly grinds my gears because sometimes discourse just isn't my vibe, especially when it's on TikTok. I feel like people get caught in circles of saying the same thing over and over again, or like arguing about things and just, not really letting it go anywhere, to be honest. And I think I'm judging people in my generation. I'm not doing the work to really listen to and understand people outside of when they're engaged in these viral discourses. So I really want to work on just engaging with the voices of my generation, because these women that I look up to, they were meeting up with each other, they were chatting with each other, and they didn't always agree with each other, but they were there and they were present, and they were having an impact on one another. And I want to do that with people that are in my generation, who are my peers. These are my threads, the little things that I thought about or made notes about in the margins while I was reading, that didn't necessarily connect to this main topic, but that I just want to put out into the world because maybe someone else will study it. Maybe I'll make a mini series in the future if these sound interesting, but I just think it's a nice conclusion to just lead somewhere else with this work, because the questions really don't stop flowing. So this is the first one that I have. What does real security feel like, especially considering when things like silence create a false sense of security? The second is, who are the daughters of each generation? As I was saying in A Place of Rage, it was so cool hearing Angela Davis talk about Fannie Lou Hamer. And I think it would be so interesting to just kind of go by the decades maybe and just think about what each generation was using as their teachings from like maybe 30 years before, 20 years before, and just really look at how that may have shaped the way that they formed their own movements and added on to who came before. The third is, what does solidarity look like with other communities, considering the various ways we have experienced being silenced as Black women? So, as we know, this study is about intersections of race and sex, and on both ends of that, we can experience oppression from a variety of people and being silenced from a variety of people. So, coming back to solidarity, knowing these things, what does that look like? That's my last question. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Ology of a Black Woman. I'm really looking forward to the coming episodes and continuing my studies over the next few weeks. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you are interested in, coming along with me for this journey and just exploring little things that pique my interest in these mini series. So, thanks and have a great rest of your day.